Well, we finally have it. Concrete information about the brand new supported home program, which will replace the home care packages system in June and July of 2025. In this video, what I'm going to be doing is going through a document that was recently released by the government that talks about the key concepts in the new supported home program. We're going to break it down. I'm going to pull out a few key points so that you've got the essential information that you need to know about the changes to the new aged care system. Let's jump into it. Okay, so the way we're going to do this, I'm just going to share information, share my screen about this document that was released in September, and we'll pull out a few points and I'll break it down to explain it from my perspective and also highlight some questions that I've got in front of mind around the details that may not have been released yet. Got to remember that at the time of this recording, this bill is still being debated in Parliament, so it isn't yet law. It hasn't passed and is not the official act, but it's soon to be. So I won't go too far into the weeds of it, just discuss the high-level topics. Let's jump into it. Okay, so here's the Supported Home Program Frequently Asked Questions document that was released. And if we scroll down, I want to go to this part here, which talks about what are the key changes for home care package program participants transitioning to the supported home program on the 1st of July 2025. So they talk about 6 key changes, and they're the ones I want to base this conversation around. So the first one being we're moving to a quarterly budget. Now, how does that differ to the current home care package system that we have in place? So currently, we've got the home care packages. There's 4 levels of home care packages, and people are assigned a particular level of funding, and that will be their funding for the whole year. And that funding's paid on a monthly basis to the care recipient. And if that funding doesn't get used, it simply rolls over to the next month. The same sort of thing happens with a home care package. However, a slight change is happening now with the supported home program. Instead of you getting your yearly funding allocation broken up into monthly payments, what's going to happen now is your yearly funding is going to be made visible but paid through on a quarterly basis. And it's that quarterly basis which will coincide with your care plan so that you know how much funding you got available to use within your care plan. The key distinction here is whatever you don't use on that quarterly basis, a maximum of either 10% or $1,000 can roll over to the next quarter. So it's effectively a use it or lose it kind of policy, which is a huge change to the current arrangements that we have under the home care package system. The second thing that they talk about here is a defined service list. And what they're saying is under the supported home, all services will be specified on a service list with clear inclusions and exclusions that largely mirror existing services. So under the current arrangement under the home care package system, there's always been a lot of debate and a lot of confusion around what can be paid for out of your government home care package funding. And there's always been a bit of a grey area as well. Some providers would say, oh yeah, you can pay for that thing under your home care package. Other providers would say, no, that's not allowed under the home care package system. What they're saying here is they're going to be a lot more descriptive as to what you can get funded and what you can't. In addition to that, point number 3 says the government is providing price caps set by the government for the various types of things that you can purchase. They're specifically talking about services here. So not only is the government going to be more prescriptive as to what you can spend that funding on, but they're also dictating what amount of funding can be used to pay for those services and products. So for example, let's say you needed some domestic assistance. Well, the government's going to have a shopping list, and in that shopping list, it's going to say domestic assistance, the government is willing to pay X amount of dollars towards that, right? And let's pull an arbitrary number out. Let's say it's $75 an hour. We don't know the prices yet. I'm just pulling a number out. Let's say it's $75 an hour. That's a real shift to where we currently are, because right now, a home care provider can charge $80 or $50 or $60. It's really up to them what they choose to charge you and ultimately have your funding, home care package funding cover. So that is a dramatic shift to what we currently are. For many consumers, that's going to be a great thing because it's going to offer a level of protection and confidence that they're not going to be overcharged by a service provider. For other consumers, where they're currently receiving services and products that are really cost effective, we may actually see a price rise by those providers to the capped price that the government's mandating. So we've got to watch this space. Moving on to the next point, no separate administration charges. Under the current home care package program, providers have two types of administration fees that they typically charge. The first type is known as the package management fee. The second type is known as the case management fee. And traditionally it's been the package management fee was to cover things like the administration side of organising the payments of certain service providers. And then that other administration fee, known as the case management fee, was typically around clinical and lifestyle management activities associated with delivering support to that person and helping that person live their best life. So as an example, a case plan would be put in place for the consumer on a yearly basis, and every 6 months or 12 months that case plan would be reviewed to make sure that the care recipient, they were achieving their lifestyle goals and were staying well, and if there was any changes that needed to be made to the plan that is ultimately put in place to keep them well, then they could do that. You know, maybe it might be additional social support or additional domestic assistance or assistance with navigating the aged care to get approved for a higher level of support or accessing different services in the community. These are all known as case management type services, and home care providers would charge a separate fee for that. So under this new scheme, the Support at Home program, what the government is proposing is that there will be no more charging of package management fees. Instead, what the government wants to do is that price list that they're going to define and come up with, they're going to specify a price for a service or a product that bakes in the package management fee into that. So providers are not going to be able to charge a package management fee. Again, going back to the domestic assistance example, that arbitrary number I came up with of $75 an hour that the government may put as their price cap, that $75 an hour is all a home care provider can charge, and that money has to cover the administrative side, traditionally known as package management fee, that the provider is currently charging, as well as any service delivery, paying their staff, paying their operational costs in their organisation. So package management fees are on the out. Case management are still part of the system. The government recognises case management is an essential part of managing somebody's well-being. And under what it's saying here, it's saying that care management, they're using the term care management, case management, care management, they're very interchangeable terms as to what some providers call them these days. But in the document, the government is referring to it as care management. A 10% of somebody's funding is going to be set aside to put towards the care management activities, okay? So if somebody's approved for a certain amount of funding, straight away, the registered provider that is going to co-manage that with the client, they're going to grab 10% and put it aside, and that funding is going to be used towards the care management activities, okay? And it goes on to saying in this document as well that self-managing is still possible. It's a little bit vague whether this care management of 10% is going to be a compulsory thing, so even applicable to those who choose to self-manage. But I'm reading that as that's going to be the case, right? So even if you self-manage in the future, which is still going to be possible, the provider that you will work under self-managing, because you still need to choose a provider, even if you self-manage, they will automatically grab 10%, set it aside towards care management services, which they are going to be responsible to conduct. Okay. The final point I want to highlight is this separate pool of funding for what they're calling assistive technology and home modifications. This is something that I feel is long overdue. What's happening at the moment is people who have a home care package and need some home modifications or assistive technology, say like a mobility scooter or a recliner chair or a hydraulic bed, what they're doing is a lot of people are banking up the funding that they get month on month with their home care package. They're saving it up in order to make a big lump sum purchase for one of these mobility devices or home modification, like a bathroom modification. These are big ticket items. So a lot of people are choosing to go without the daily service and support that they need in order to save that funding so that they can make these big ticket purchases. That's not good for anyone, because it's putting the home care recipient at risk because they desperately need services. And on top of that, they're having to wait for the essential lifestyle and safety equipment that they ultimately need. The new proposal that the government's putting forward is saying, no. If you get approved for home care funding under the Support at Home program, that's for a certain type of services, and we want you getting those straight away. But we recognise that you need some equipment as well. So here's a separate funding pool specifically for that. Okay, the government does go into talking about the proposed levels of funding for those. I'm going to put that in a different video. It's nice to see that there's a separate mechanism for that as well. The last thing I want to cover in this video that's worth mentioning is this idea of consumer contributions to support services. A few numbers have been floating around and they are still being debated, but what they are talking about is a 17.5% co-contribution on entry-level services. So what the government's doing is they're categorizing certain services across 3 separate tiers. Tier 1 being lifestyle activities, Tier 2 being health and well-being, and Tier 3 being clinical requirements. The lowest tier, those lifestyle things, now that might be domestic assistance and gardening. What the government is saying is under that entry-level lifestyle service tier, a co-contribution with the consumer is required in order to access that. Now that's actually not too dissimilar to what we currently already have under what we call the Commonwealth Home Support Program, which is the entry-level home support program that we have in this country. In that program, consumers are asked to pay a subsidised fee for domestic assistance. And that typically looks like $10 to $15 per hour that you get somebody coming in the home to do domestic assistance. So this isn't new, this co-contribution concept. What the government is saying is that we want to apply this co-contribution across all levels of home support, okay? And it's going to come in at around 17.5%. Now that 17.5%, that's going to be means tested. So a pensioner may be expected to pay 17.5%, and if you're a self-funded or a partially funded retiree, you could be expected to pay more. Again, the exact numbers haven't been released yet. We'd expect to see those over the next few weeks to months. As part of this entry-level support services, the government has also said that they are capping the amount of this entry-level support services. And specifically, they've called out domestic assistance to a maximum of 52 hours per year. Okay, 52 hours a year. Now, you may not be aware, but support workers delivering support services in the community, they are employed under what is known as the SHADS award wage. And under the SHADS award wage, one of the elements of being a SHADS worker is minimum 2-hour shifts. So if the government is saying that a home care recipient can receive a maximum of 52 hours of domestic assistance per year, the reality is though, a support worker or a home care provider is not going to send a SHADS employee to somebody's house for 1 hour, okay? So that being the case, the fact that SHADS award is minimum 2-hour shifts, it's highly likely that home care providers are going to be offering domestic assistance to their clients on a fortnightly basis for 2 hours, okay? This is my interpretation of it. Going forward, I expect to see the majority of people receiving support services, domestic assistance support services, to be receiving those no longer on a weekly basis, but on a fortnightly basis. And other services will still may be received on a weekly basis, but they will not be marked down as domestic assistance. They may be marked down as social support, help with shopping, or clinical support, or nursing assistance, but they won't be marked down as cleaning the house. So that's my initial take on it. It's great to see some concrete information flowing through. There's still a lot of questions to be answered, but we're going to start seeing this flow through. And at the time of this recording, in September 2024, got to remember, we are 10 months away from this program going live. So I would expect the information to start flowing thick and fast. So watch this space. I will keep you regularly updated. If you haven't already done so, click the subscribe button below so that as I have this information readily available, you'll get notified. Until then, speak soon.
If you found this video interesting, I'm sure you'll find even more value in the next one. So click the link just over there and I'll catch you in the next one. See you soon.